So this story is strange and makes me uncomfortable, and that is precisely why I like it. So most of y'all are probably very glad that I chose not to wear an ephod this morning, which is basically like a one-piece kilt, but it's a little bit shorter. You know, it would show off more than just my knees. It'd be up high on my thighs. So it's this kind of dress for men. And it was a priestly thing. So you're welcome. I did think about trying to find one and wear it so you guys could get a taste for that. But you're lucky I spared you. So you're welcome. So Sarah and I had a great time dancing at her cousin's wedding this past week. I even was able to get down with some polka music. And I don't dance the polka, but it's, you know, a lot of jumping back and forth. So we figured it out and had fun. And Sarah and I have been dancing together since the beginning of our relationship. That's why she married me. And I married her because I needed someone that could keep up with me. So there you have it. But even though we've been dancing together for all these 10 plus years, we still misstep every once in a while, and I end up stepping on her toes or throwing her out when I'm not supposed to. So it happens. Dancing is awkward, especially if there's not a trusted relationship with your partner. Even good dancers have some missteps and some accidents along the way. Just ask Sarah. This is extremely true also of David and his character. He clearly was a man who loved God, but he sometimes loved himself a little bit more. Dancing with God is a wonderful experience until we try to take the lead. God leads, we follow, and the dance goes on. So here in this curious story, King David is dancing and celebrating because he wants to make his city the spiritual capital of the nation. It's already the political capital, and now he's going to make it the spiritual capital as well. That's not a bad vision to have, right? Well, he had good intentions, but his first attempt to dance, celebrate, and parade the ark home ended in tragedy. The suggested lectionary reading skips over the bewildering part of the story where Uzzah is killed because he touches the ark as it starts to fall. I wanted to include that part in our reading today. This, of course, puts a damper on the festivities that David was holding. What went wrong? David had taken the lead in the dance. He forgot to follow the priestly law to carry the ark on poles, not with oxen, as the Philistines who had stolen the ark had done before. The Philistines suffered many plagues because they took possession of the ark and they took it on an ox cart. David should have known better. David failed to show his gratefulness to God for his ability as king to retrieve this important symbol of the faith. They didn't have a temple. They found God's presence in that ark that was usually housed in a tent. God was with David, but God was not happy with his self-aggrandizing dancing. Now in this story, poor Uzzah takes the fall for David's mistake, as the Almighty reminds the people that he is still present and will be respected. Sadly, this is often the case when leaders make mistakes. They're not necessarily always the one that takes the fall. It's a vulnerable person in their realm that is hurt in the process. This text provides a dynamic portrait of God's presence and power with the people of Israel and the danger and joy of being in God's presence. We must always be careful not to take the place of God. As humans, it is so easy to trust in our own abilities rather than the Lord's strength. Trusting in ourselves over God always has bad consequences. The Lord is with us and wants to dance with us, yet it is important that we know our place. When God has the reins, all goes smoothly until we try to take over again. Now, as Christians, we do this all the time, right? Lord, thank you for your love and grace, but I'll take care of my own family, and you can help those who really need it. I've got it from here. I got this under control. Really? We like to think that we know best, but we don't. Successful dancing with a partner or being in a relationship is based in trust. And when we can't trust God with the small details, the small steps of our lives, we can find ourselves getting into trouble. So after getting angry with God about killing Uzzah and effectively raining on David's parade, David, after a while, changes his attitude. Verse 5 parallels verses 14 and 15, and the main difference is what comes before each of these verses about the people celebrating with all their might. After abandoning the Ark of the Covenant outside of Jerusalem for some time, David realizes his mistake. He kept the Ark at a distance because he saw the power and danger of God's presence, but he also saw that in Obed-Edom, the people were receiving blessings for having the Ark, which symbolized God's presence in their midst. He did not reverence and respect the Lord who had brought him to power. So he makes sacrifice to restore his relationship with the Lord before moving too far with the ark. Putting his trust back in God's leading, the dance continues without a hitch. Now David is dancing with reckless abandon because he has been shown grace. God could have chosen to kill David or send plagues on the people of Israel for David's missteps. But instead, only one person has to die. So when David realizes this, his joy is overflowing. His neglected wife, Michal, however, is not feeling it, and she criticizes him because she has the sense that it's still all about him. So here is another omission of our lectionary reading, which includes this ending where Michal questions David's motives. Verse 20 says this: When David returned home to bless his household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, "How the king of Israel has disgraced himself today, going around half naked, in full view of the slave girls of his servants, as any vulgar fellow would." David responds harshly to Michal in the following verses. "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house, when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord, and I will become even more undignified than this. And yes, I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But by these slave girls you spoke of, I will be held in honor." So, David might still be a little bit proud. This crazy chapter ends with the note that Michal did not have any children. That's most likely not because God had cursed her, but because after this incident, David was on one side with the rest of his wives and concubines, and Michal, by her choosing, was in the opposite corner of the palace. I think David needed to hear what Michal was saying. I think we all need to hear what Michal is trying to get across. 2 weeks ago, we heard that David has become king of all Israel, and part of this is that he has many wives and concubines. And he is thus likely neglecting his wife who loved him and saved his life. His wife, Michal, who defied her own father to try to protect David. With so many wives and concubines, David is clearly distracted, and he loses focus, which is just the sort of thing that gets people like Uzzah and later Uriah killed. I wonder how David's life might have looked if he listened to Michal as he did to Abigail, as we heard in last week's sermon. Even after David changes his attitude to one of gratitude, his motives for dancing before the Lord are still mixed. Yet he is indeed praising God with joyful exuberance. Now, Michal was upholding the traditional ideas about worship and kingly roles. After all, she is a princess who grew up as a royal. She cannot help but be upset by David's lack of decorum as he prances about. Our churches today find ourselves also in this predicament. Some people prefer to let themselves go and worship, raising their hands, clapping, singing, and dancing, sometimes even being slain by the Spirit in the middle of the aisle. And others, like most Presbyterians, like more solemn reverence as they worship God Almighty. Both, of course, are appropriate responses to God's incredible grace, so we need not be judgmental like Michal. Worship styles are not the essential piece of loving God and trusting in our relationship, but rather a grateful and joyful heart is what will keep us in this lasting relationship, the dance we find ourselves in with the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. So friends, the good news that we hear throughout this sermon series that will continue for the next few weeks is that hopefully you can start to see that David is not all bad or all good. David had God with him, but he still made selfish mistakes all along the way, just as we do. And through it all, David continues to dance with the Lord full of joy. We can and should follow suit. We might even have to raise our hands and clap a little bit. As we seek after God's own heart, we need to remember the power of God. The Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer is in control, is the one who takes the lead, not us. We need to celebrate with all our might because we have been shown tremendous love and grace in our lives. We are called to dance with God as the Lord leads us in our journey of faith. And I love the quote, "Dance like no one is looking." And there's more to it, but I want to just leave it at that part. I strongly agree with this in both its literal and metaphorical sense. I've always told people, if you want to dance good, you should feel really stupid. If you're out there and you look foolish and silly, you're doing it right. But that's also true that we should live our lives and not worry too much about what other people are thinking about us as we dance with God. The reality, though, as Michal points out, is that people are watching. And they might get the wrong idea about us as we dance. So we want people to see us dancing because we are loved by a generous God. We shall be seen dancing because we are grateful for the blessings that God has freely given to us. Let us not be seen dancing because it makes us look good or attractive. We are not dancing with God for our own benefit, but rather for the benefit of others. Friends, if you are like me, then you need this reminder to not take the lead with God. And some of you just need to let go and dance with the Lord and stop worrying so much about being so serious or pious. Wherever you are, the joy of the Lord will be our strength. God will continue to be with us and will continue to invite us to the dance. So, people of God, let's dance. Amen.